Welcome to the Sport Media and Tech Podcast. I'm Keel Blake. On this episode, Dr. Jeff Porter and I talk automated intelligence with Don White, CEO and co-founder of Satisfi Labs. We have a lot of fun talking about where you can find cheese curds, Jarvis, Iron Man's personal assistant, and more serious topics like diversity inclusion with AI. Stay tuned to learn more.
How did you get your start in automated intelligence or sports or tech? Tell us a little about your journey.
Totally by accident. I think it's always interesting to say, well, I planned it this way. But when I was at Bloomberg, when I was 25 years old, someone said to me, hey, I know you run a small department now. Would you like to do something new and different? I said, sure. Does it pay the same? They said, yeah. We have this new technology called algorithmic trading. We're going to train you how to teach machines how to outtrade people. And at Bloomberg, that was a pretty cool thing. Became a huge business. 15 years into that, I was looking for a new opportunity and I got a bunch of, hey, you worked at a great company. We don't know if you're good or Bloomberg's good. And if you've built up a 15-year career somewhere and you can't differentiate your talent and performance from your brand, you struggle. So I went looking for a startup, found one, and I met my partner actually at this startup. And so what we were working on is how could we apply, we both had Wall Street backgrounds. How can we apply our Wall Street background to a new idea? And we have a funny story about how that entered into Citi Field. Do you want me to tell the story?
Yes, please.
You want me to tell the story?
Absolutely.
Please do.
We started here. Might as well keep going.
Don't just hang it out there on us, Don. Come on now. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to create some urgency, So it really started simply. We thought that there was a data gap in understanding fan behaviors and purchase behaviors and why they buy things and what they're looking for to experience at a stadium. And so my partner, so he was head of prop trading at CIBC, is like, hey, Citi Field has bacon on a stick. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that. How do we know that? Let's get some. Let's go get some bacon on a stick. And we said, well, how would fans know that? And so the whole core of the idea was what kind of a search engine could we develop to help fans find pork on a wooden piece? And that kicked off the idea, and we pitched it to the Mets and baseball, and here we are 4 years later with 200 clients in the space.
That's hysterical. I'm sorry, that is absolutely hysterical. So let's take this a bit further then. So where you are and kind of all the experience that you had, how would you define AI, and what is AI, for our viewers out there, because they know they've listened to a few other folks give their own definitions. How do you define AI? How do you see AI impacting your business?
I mean, it's simply put, it's computers or machines that can accomplish tasks that are typically thought of to require human intelligence. So it's a machine able to complete tasks that you'd think a human would have to do. For us, we use conversational AI. So AI has a bunch of forms. There's visual identification AI, there's speech recognition AI, there's the performance AI that you would see in sports, but ours is conversational AI. So we've taught machines to understand what humans would in a large volume of questions or purchase decisions, and made it so we can automate it at scale for our customer base.
That's awesome. And there's so much that AI can do, Don, and I'm just curious. So today, what is your bread and butter for AI with Satisfi Labs? And then, just could you share a little bit about the importance of just interactivity with AI and what you're exploring there?
Yeah, I mean, the core product pre-COVID was so heavily based on the live experience. If you think about, before COVID, when you think about the BC world,
Yeah,
it's
true.
hey, I'm going to a stadium and maybe I have a kid who's got a gluten allergy, or maybe I like to park close, or maybe I'm looking for a Guinness in a can, which is a terrible idea. But maybe there are those things that I want to find and get. And so we had a tremendous amount of usage for that. I think the epitome of our business occurred when everything shut down. And people were still asking high volumes of questions like, where do I watch, and who's pitching, and when will tickets come back? So the interaction of being able to both learn, the machine learns, and then being able to say, oh, you can watch it here and click here, or oh, here's who's pitching tonight, or hey, someone's on second base right now, do you want to watch the rest of the game? That's where I think we complete the usage process on information on demand.
So Don, let's take a step back and let's talk about what Satisfi Labs is, how the company came to be, because I know you kind of touched on it briefly. And let's talk about Satisfi Labs as a opportunity or organization that's able to help other organizations that you've already done to kind of use this technology that you've developed.
Yeah, the core, it's a data company at its core. And so we literally, at the simplest format, wanted to provide an entry point for consumers to digitally ask questions and get them answered in real time. So whereas, if you speak to someone, that's not recorded. If you email someone, it's very hard to really categorize all that. If you go on a website and you click around, how do I know if you found it or what you were looking for? So how could we digitally get footprints of what people really wanted and do? So the interactive answer engine is a product that produces answers in real time and then creates a dialogue conversational format so we can continue the conversation, continue the relationship. Other companies, we do have a lot of partnerships. We're partnered with most of the mobile app companies. Our two largest partners are Google and Apple, and Amazon. I'd put in that category, so 3. So those products utilize our technology to surface or publish the content that the brands have. Like if I am the Minnesota Vikings or the Minnesota Twins, I want my information to get to my fan directly. So instead of going to google.com and trying to find out, just ask the Twins or ask the Vikings or ask whoever. We want to create that brand. So a lot of partnerships come into us to help them get their content in front of the end user or the fan.
So earlier, Don, I'm sorry I can't get off this topic, but you mentioned bacon, and I'm from the Midwest. Dr. Porter here lives in the Midwest. I can't. So bacon. Let's bring this all back to bacon. So bacon goes really well with cheese curds. And when you're from the Midwest, if you're going to go out, you're going to go watch a game, you're going to be at the bar food is bacon, cheese curds, and whatever else you can have with it, right? So could you share a little bit about just how you're learning and innovating from customer inputs and then what the AI outputs? But going back to the example of how can you just find cheese curds when at a Vikings game in Minnesota?
Cheese curds are not everywhere. It's actually the number one asked question in US Bank Stadium is related to, it's ticketing first and cheese curds are second. So even though it's your experience, I don't know where bacon is on that list. I don't think it's there, but we could supply it. I think the learning is so fascinating. This year, specifically, we had a pandemic, and then we had some social justice issues that were really serious in the sports space. Our system had to handle questions like, how do you feel about Black Lives Matter? And how do you feel about your athletes kneeling for the anthem? And we actually went to our customer base and said, well, is there an answer here? Like, what do you want to say? What do you want to represent? And there were various brands that said, we have something to say and we're proud of it and we're proud of our position. There were other brands that said, you know what? We'd like to stay silent on this topic. And so I think this digital age of information where the system is saying, hey, fans are asking me questions and I need to know what to say. It's not just learning what the fans say. I think we're also learning what the brands are able to say. And it's a complicated topic, I understand, but 50% of our top intents this year are new. They didn't exist in 2019. That's a machine that's like, what's going on in my world that half of what I knew last year doesn't count? So it was really fascinating to see how fans utilize the platform to get real important information.
So Don, actually, since you brought it up, I kind of want to ask you like more of a social justice question in this context. You've already touched on it a bit, but based on the Black Lives Matter and all the social justice issues that hit during the summer and that was kind of very prevalent for even everybody, right? We all saw it, we all kind of experienced it. What are some of the key learnings that you utilize from that in your company, and then for even the folks that work for you?
We have a statement on our website that actually does articulate a couple of things. Now, I'll tell you candidly, I grew up in Brooklyn. I had a very diverse upbringing, but we even discovered biases in our AI. Like there were certain words that we didn't treat as important, like to be candid, there are certain words that we needed to pull out and say, you know what, these are like words that we should perhaps not have this fan come back. And maybe these are words that are less threatening and important. We also went through a whole DEI education program. So Vince Pearson's a friend of mine from minor league baseball. You might know him. I reached out to him very early on and said, hey, listen, we need to take a step back as a company and say, are we actually doing enough to, from who we hire to how we educate, to how we train our system, to how we engage in the new culture of our world. We were very aggressive about it. If anyone wants to read on our website, under the About page, you'll see our entire platform was written out. We took a very aggressive approach. We didn't want to put something stupid hashtag on an Instagram or a Twitter and call it a day. Like, we actually invested about 3 to 4 months into our first phase of the program. And next year we have some plans for an HBCU internship and some other ideas that Vince has come up with that we plan to initiate as soon as we can.
Don, something that we always talk about with our students is just, treating people with kindness and respect, and just remembering that, what you do with your actions and your words will be remembered by not just the people you think you're interacting with, but all those that are observing your actions. So, I'm curious, we as people sometimes can't get along as is with other people, and aren't always the kindest, but what do you observe in terms of interactions with AI? Something that I always, at home, when I ask Alexa to turn on some music, I say, please. Do you see kindness over text and chat?
I mean, I have great stories about this. My favorite is when we had the system had a bit of a personality, and it was very good at finding beer. And the person on the other side actually thought it was a bartender. So as the fan, I know what gender, I'm 99% sure of the gender, but I'm not sure. As the fans engaging, like, well, what about beer here? And it's like, oh, you can find beer here, and it's amazing. Oh, what about after the 7th inning? Oh, and he's like, hey, are you busy tonight? And so we have some kind of like fallback that says, oh, thank you, I'm whatever. And it's like, no, like, could you meet me now? Like, so after 3 or 4 beer interactions, the fan asked it on a date, and I snapshotted it and said, this is awesome. What's fascinating is how raw people will be on an AI system, as if it's not digitally recorded. People will put some very profane language about a player. We had to create containers about coaches. So if a certain NFL team loses a game, there is a spike in what we call the coach complain category. And so it's both ways. You see, I used to track how many people say thank you. And I thought that was weird. Like, so you're thanking a machine who also says thank you back. And so, like, that's odd. So why are we polite to machines? It's kind of interesting human behavior. And why are we raw to machines that are recording our behavior? It seems us as humans haven't really figured out the right way to interact with machines.
I mean, I think that goes back to, and Keel and I spoke about this before, like the old additive of the machines will become self-aware. And they'll, they'll take us, iRobot, Terminator, Matrix style.
Sure.
It might be nice to be kind to your AI overlords right now.
Lord knows they'll remember more than we do by the time that comes around. So,
well, they only know what they've been taught, and that's a very, this whole like the Turing concept and will machines think ahead of you and whatnot. What's really true is we have a team of 3 people that are constantly teaching the machine new things. A good example is a reservation was really a restaurant concept. A face mask was a football helmet concept, just BC. And so now the machine's like, wait, people wear masks everywhere? Like, what are you telling me? Like, that can't be true. You can't wear a face mask to a zoo. The machine's like, doesn't compute. Or a reservation, now you have to reserve your spot at an aquarium. There was no such thing as a reservation at an aquarium. So trying to teach a machine through COVID was almost as hard as living through it ourselves. So it's fascinating.
How much data did it take for you and your team to teach the AI system that now we're all wearing whatever you want to call them, face masks, face coverings, the difference, and now we're all
Temperature
getting
checks.
reservations of everything needs a reservation because you need to make sure of capacity numbers, right? How much data did it take to like teach a machine like that one simple concept of a face mask?
5 million phrases. I only know this because I was writing my end of year report, and the answer is it took 5 million new phrases to handle the volume of new questions that we'd never seen before. So keep in mind, right now we can handle somewhere between 60 million questions or something crazy like that, even if you include statistics and all the derivatives of like this, that, and the other, because we've been at this a couple of years and we focused heavily on the industry. So to add 5 million new things after 3.5 years of doing the same thing, it just gives you a total understanding of how unique this year is. And now what's happening is they're starting to merge, because finding food with a mask, and now can I eat with my mask on? Like now you're starting to, the exponential math equation goes out huge. So we're starting to merge our post BC learning with some of our pre BC learning, and that's a real fun project for the team for Christmas break, if you will.
Yeah, Don, you just went AI Dr. Evil on us.
Yeah,
If you're Austin Powers with
I'm
5
sorry.
million going to 60 million, the number just
A lot
keeps
of
rising.
big
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah. No, but hey, I think I want to go back to what you shared about the NFL and some of the stats and questions about players, coaches. So recently, I think you partnered with StatMuse to share an experience for NFL teams. Could you share a little bit about that and just what you've been learning from the inputs and what people are curious about when they ask about stats?
Yeah, Eli Dawson is the CEO of StatMuse. We're both Google portfolio companies, so we actually are in the same portfolio at Google. So I actually met him through the Sports Network, and then we share an investor, which is really cool. So he is a specialist. He and his team are specialists at really complex questions about stats, like how many rushing yards does Lamar Jackson have against the Steelers in his career or this year, or what's Justin Jefferson like, would give you a whole profile of this year. So I love what he's done. And I said, you know what, there's a best of breed concept here. So what we saw was fans were starting to ask, not just like, when are we playing, or, what position is this player, but something more complex, because they might want to set up their fantasy lineups, or, look at their betting in the states that where it's legal. So we thought, hey, we're getting these questions, our system's processing them, but we need a partner here. So I reached out to Eli and said, hey, why don't we build a product together where we can combine our AI system. So my AI talks to his AI. I've got 2 machines. Watch out, try, here it comes Skynet too. And it's we launched in the NFL, NBA, NHL, and others are coming soon. But it does create that experience where you and your buddy have a bet. Like, hey, the last time Dalvin Cook played against the Dolphins, he ran for 100 yards, right? I don't know, let's ask. And so we wanted to create that type of engagement. So people love the matchup questions. That's what they're really looking to dive into.
So Don, with that, are you seeing more questions now because of the availability of sports betting and how it's becoming so widespread? Do you see more of those questions tied to not only is how much rushing yard did Lamar Jackson have in his career or against Steelers or the Patriots, et cetera, but like, what's the line on this? Where can I go to get the quickest bet in? Is there an app for that, where the best app is, and things like that? Like, how are you seeing that new kind of wave of sports betting take hold in your industry?
So we are people are the lines is a new data set that I'm working on, because that's the spreads are, what's the spread?
Yeah.
I just want to know the spread. It's a quick one.
The Michigan Ohio State spread on Tuesday opened up at 39.5. So
listen, I just said I have
family.
I have family in Columbus. I won't tell you what campus they live on, but I have family in Columbus for this. And they're about to create a 6th game for them or something. If you just saw the news, by the way, I guess they're privileged in Columbus. But what we started to see is, everything with AI is learning. So we can see kind of what people want a little ahead of time. Like I can tell you, last summer, I was like, what's hard seltzer? Because people are looking for it in a stadium. And listen, I would tell you, you would not know what White Claw was when we started seeing it. We have someone asking about a Panda having a virus in China, February 10th or 12th. So in this case, what people are doing now is they're starting to do the matchups, and now we'll start to collect the data on when they ask for the line. So we're talking to one of the top gambling companies that you'd probably associate with sports and saying, hey, let's get your data feed ready because progressively this is where it's going to go. And they're like totally engaged about where you're going, which is, hey, let's actually start to promote our product while they're asking the matchup questions, not wait for them to discover they can ask the line questions. Part of AI's struggle is discoverability. You ask Siri or Alexa something, you get so annoyed when it doesn't know. You're like, you should know that.
Yes.
Our system's the same. Our system's the same way. Sometimes they're like, why didn't you know, the weather? Well, I don't know. I didn't hook up the weather feed yet. Like, do you want to know? If you ask it 5 more times, I'll know you really care. Or use the app on your iPhone. It's staring you in the face. Maybe that's a better way. So we're getting there. You're right on the path of where I'm headed to. So we'll be there.
Yeah, well, we've talked about just asking questions and engagement, but I think what we really just shared was an opportunity where we can start having more mobile conversions, right? You talked about buying tickets. Now they can just not maybe ask for the line, but maybe in the future they could place a bet through chat and things like that, right? But that's where I'm not trying here to have a Boston accent, but I want to ask you about the wicked results. All right. So I'm not even going to attempt that. Jeff, maybe you can make a play at that. I don't have that. I'm not Mark Wahlberg or any of those guys. So
the Boston accent is a little too hard for me.
Yeah.
I got New York down, East Coast. Boston's the A's are a little hard for me.
Yeah. But Don, we want to know about wicked results.
Yeah, it was, that idea was born out of two people that I met a while ago. I pitched them the product and they were on Broadway and they said, hey, can you grab dinner? And I'm like, hey, who's paying? And so they said, hey, your tech you're not even using it right. They're like, this thing could replace box offices and the future is going to be digital. People are going to want to just go have a conversation, buy a ticket. They don't want to use the phone or anything. This is 2017. So we started building a bunch of products. The brainchild of that works for us. His name is John Scott. He was the chief revenue officer at Hamilton. He said, look, people go to websites, they know they want to buy. Let's take some of the thought out of it. So if you see, it's a very simplistic tool. It says, hey, do you want best value? So do you not want to pay a lot of money? Do you want like best available because you're on like a major date? Or is the date important to you? So it walks you through a simple conversation, transacts. We did about $3 million of tickets. I think it was Wicked and one other show in Q4, just with a handful of shows. And the conversions were like 20, 21%, some ridiculously high number like that. And I know there's a number on our website, but the price per ticket increase was like 12 or 13% because we were using conversational tones, not pick the mezzanine level 2. I tell you, we sold every ticket without showing a seating chart. And people told me we were nuts. I said, you know what? I think if people know that the machine is choosing the best available site of the stage, they believe that. I don't know that they know by looking at that frame. What is the best seat? My machine said, hey, this is the best seat. It's also the best seat that Wicked wants you to have. So keep in mind, machines have bias too. Some are in your favor and some are in the favor of the person that pays us. So keep that in mind.
Again, this is how we got to Skynet.
Yeah.
So based on kind of where you're at and kind of where you're seeing the industry projecting, what kinds of applications, or what's the future of applications for these mobile devices that we're all carrying around now? They're all tracking us at this point. Where are we going with that?
We're very close with Apple and Google. Apple, I would highlight, there's a product that I've been working on and it's in a couple of stadiums, and we launched 2 this year in baseball that I think are the future. Jarvis from Iron Man is such a great, I hope I can use that.
Yes, let's go for it. Wait, for those who don't know, Jarvis is Tony Stark's digital assistant, and it was Tony Stark's father's butler when he was alive. So that's me nerding out a little bit.
Keep going, Dr. Porter. I love it. Keep going. Yeah. If you didn't, I was. So
I didn't know the father. I didn't know the father part, and I feel like I've seen That
Yes.
movie, like I learned something.
Jarvis was the butler for Tony Stark's father. You see that on a military base when they go back in time. When Tony Stark talks to his dad, the dad doesn't know it. However, Jarvis is actually his AI digital assistant for everything in life.
Look at you pointing down those Easter
You are
eggs
good.
in Marvel
You
movies
are good.
right here
Boom!
mid podcast. I love it. Yeah. All right. Back to our regular scheduled programming.
Wait,
Done. Yeah.
So like where Apple's going is look at the Apple Business Chat product. It's an iOS embedded SMS tool. And so the pitch there is, hey, now your brand can be in the same place as your best friend. And now it can integrate with the other things in your phone, apps, calendars, Apple Pay, things like that. So the future is really how can these big companies, Amazon, Google, Apple, integrate all the information of the brands you care about, all the purchase ease of your voice or your thumb, and make it so that you can literally call out like, hey, we did a project with Family Opera. Hey, there are tickets this weekend for Phantom. Yep, we've got 2 under $99. You want them? Yep, I want them. I'll charge your Amazon account. Great, we just emailed you the tickets. That's like today. Tomorrow is like, hey, do you want me to call you an Uber? Yes, I'll call you an Uber. What time do you want it to arrive? I want it to arrive at this time. So connecting the siloed AI applications is where the real Jarvis is created. So right now you have siloed experiences, but we are not far away from just us tying in with other companies and et cetera to make that whole unique journey where you could all do it via voice or text.
So what temperature do you like your Ubers done?
I'm a 71 degree person. I can't wait to get in. I mean, I barely use Uber now because I can walk to the only bar open near me.
Yeah.
So I don't have many places to go, It's 71.
Yeah, it's such a different time right now, right? Because we're building for what life will be in the new normal, but we're also building for how to help this transitional time where we now have the vaccine coming out and things are progressing. But yeah, so with that in mind, you had an announcement not too long ago about your relationship with Google. So could you share a little bit about Google's partnership or Satisfi Lab partnership altogether?
Great story. I met them through another investor that set up a meeting, and I said, I actually forgot that I have a deck, and the first slide of our pitch used to be, fans have questions, Google doesn't know, with a big Google logo, and then we do. And I'd meant to flip the slide out and put Apple, but I didn't. So I went in and said, and the 2 Google people were there, and I go, oh my God, I'm insulting the biggest, most powerful company in the world. And I went my pitch, and my one of the employees that was with me at the time goes, I know you totally screwed that up, and I'm sure you feel bad. I said, thanks, guy. Like, I appreciate the support. Months later, they invited me out to Mountain View and said, we want to invest in your company. We've seen your pitch and we've researched, your customers, and you have a deeper layer of answers than what we do. Let's work together to get this knowledge surfaceable. So we're in the Google Assistant is the fund where StatMuse is. So we're hyper focused on getting our content into voice experiences so that the Jarvis vision that we just kind of joked about is actually something that we're working on. And Google Assistant is one method for that today, but there's other ideas coming down the pike with them. But they have a board advisor seat, so I see them at every board meeting, and we have a tech call every 2 weeks to get new ideas and share some things that we want to do.
That's awesome. It really is. I mean, so let's look at your current applications. Like, how many applications do you guys actually have, and what's the scope of those apps? And effectively, can I download one of those apps to utilize for me as soon as, because I want to be the first, I want to be an early adopter when the applications start talking to each other.
Yeah, I'll sign you up. You're a doctor, like you can do whatever you want. Right now, the product is essentially owned and white labeled by the brand. So you would go to the Twins app or the Vikings app, or you would go to whatever the app of the brand is. We have 200 in market right now. So you've probably hit, if you go to any sports team, you'll probably find it. Now, what's interesting is the teams brand it differently to create their own spin on it. Like the Ravens call it Flock, and that's on their website. But the I forgot the other one I saw. Slider was one of the baseball teams, and Orbit is the Astros, I believe. So you'll find it in a bunch of different pieces. How we tie them all together, to your point, is the platforms. So the goal is every brand gets their own, and then we'll create opportunities for them to merge, but our customers have to buy in because the data is owned by the brand. So if I'm the Mets per se, or the Reds, or whoever, I own that data. That search relationship is mine. If Major League Baseball wants to put it together, they can, because they're Major League Baseball. But there is a little bit of politics with the unification of data. That's why the Amazons, Googles, and Apples are the right places to do that.
Absolutely. So quick follow-up for you is that do you see college athletics, which is a bit slow and antiquated to getting to the more 21st century? Do you see that actually happening anytime soon, or are we going to be stuck trying to see what the pros do first and then try to adopt what they've done?
We just signed Georgia Tech, and we just announced, they just did a very, very nice interview about how they're using the product in the early return of fans. And so that's, I think we have to understand that, I think a frustrating thing is people think college athletics and professional, they kind of bucket things together and say, oh, well, it's just another football fan. They don't understand donations versus, that's like, I'm not donating anything to the New York Giants, right? Like it's a different thing. So I think what we do when we approach a vertical is we don't say, hey, Michigan, look at what we're doing with the Houston Texans and the Detroit Lions, and so it'll work for you. We try to build a product that caters to the industry and then expand quickly on that industry. So Georgia Tech, and we just signed another Big Ten team, I think last week. So now we'll get 2, 3, 4 together, make sure we're building the right ticketing integrations, which we have on deck, and some other things. So we have a product for collegiate. You want to help with that, Doctor, by the way?
Absolutely.
I'm open.
Absolutely.
Give you some free stuff for putting me on your podcast.
Let's talk about it. I think that's why I'm asking the question, right? If Keel didn't know, we're trying to figure out what the season's going to look like next year, and any help we can get will be fantastic.
I'll hook you up. I know a guy who could hook you up with the best economics available at our company. So they'll listen to this and know that I gave stuff away. They say I give stuff away all the time, and I do. And guess what? I'm allowed to do that because my job.
I think this is in the history of time, like the first podcast coupon that we just did B2B.
Yeah, we did, right?
Yeah.
First
this
time.
was a podcast coupon. Cut that out, Dr. Porter. Cut that out.
We could do something for UCF too while we're here. I'm in a giveaway mood. It's Christmas. Add them to the list.
Oh man. Oh, that's well, all right. Well, speaking of applications and all the different things that you're doing, and speaking of biases, if Dr. Porter asks for, suggestion of clothing, something's blue is probably going to show up. If you ask something,
I won't say.
something of that color
blue.
might show up. Yeah, but
blue.
it's black and gold, right? But you mentioned this earlier. COVID has brought in so much change so quickly. So how do you see your company going forward, assisting with the new normal of getting fans back in the stands? And I'm going to preface that with that we talk about all the time with our students, building the level of comfort for fans and reinforcing the information they need to know and things like that. So what do you see?
Yeah, there's two ways. One is, it's funny, I used this saying recently. I said, imagine that all the information about COVID that you received had been true. Like imagine all the information from the beginning had come from the source, and there was a lot of sources. So what we're saying is ask the venue directly and get the answer directly of what information you need to feel safe. Like you might say, I can tell you a lot of people, they ask questions about face masks, not saying like, do I have to wear them, but what do you do to people that don't? That's a different question. So how are you enforcing face masks is different than what do I need to do? They ask questions like, okay, if an employee has a temperature, what do you do? Not just what are you going to do if I have a temperature? So this two-way, those tweaky questions are important because the information is how we're helping with health and safety. Second thing, we actually invented something in COVID, and you'll see a lot of it. We'll do it for both your schools if you want to test it out, because I think it's new. It's called Notify. The premise is this. Actually, a lot of it came from Wicked. You have a question today, but the answer is not ready. I have a question today, but the answer is not ready. When are tickets going on sale for Michigan 2021? I don't know. So we're allowing you to subscribe to an answer. So I want Michigan, hey, text me or email me when you know when tickets are available. I was watching someone at Wicked go, I want to buy tickets to Wicked, and it says, hey, the city shut down. We don't know anything else. Like, go away. And so we applied it. It's on Wicked right now. You can say, notify me when there's an update in schedule, notify me when there's a new opportunity or discount. And now you can collect information about the person and answer them when you're ready. But now they're asking Michigan, they're asking UCF. They're not like Googling it and getting an answer where somebody says, oh, Michigan's not playing in 2021. They don't know. Doctor knows. So that's how it's going to work with making search not just time-based, but source-based. That's the big idea.
I mean, that is a great point, right? Instead of, everybody trying to check the website or check our Twitter feed on a consistent basis to see that information, right? You got to reswipe every time or reload every time. What's the new information to say, hey, notify me. So as soon as something is posted, they'll get it information up front. That's a great piece. We have a few minutes left, so I'm going to transition you into this question of, so a lot of our students are like that recent graduate or young professional looking for a new job. This industry is growing rapidly. And what advice and guidance could you give them as far as career options and where to learn about this information and how to get their foot in the door?
There's a lot. I learned a lot on LinkedIn. I mean, I look up, if you look at we're a Techstars company. Techstars has a sports portfolio that's very significant, and they show you the NFL has investments, MLB has investments. You can pick 3 or 4 Google. Stadia Ventures is another good company. They have a lot of sports investments. Just try to understand what tech is out there and pushing it. Because when you interview, if you want to go work at a team, I have employees for me, former Madison Square Garden, former LA Raiders, former Arizona Diamondbacks, former Cleveland Indians, former Orlando Magic, former Hamilton. Like, I have people from our industry that came to the table at least knowing what's out there. So if I'm interviewing a student, like we've hired some people right out of college and said, hey, tell me 3 companies in the sports entertainment industry that you think can change the way a fan experiences the event, not ours. Just name me 3 companies and what you like about them. What would you say? If you're not able to answer that question with, oh, I love this drone racing company, or, oh, I love this new virtual viewing company, I just think people will start to wonder if you have curiosity. And I think in this environment, curiosity does give us a kind of a precursor as to how interested you'll be in learning. And the second thing is just, I think this class of the Snapchat world and Instagram stories, I don't know if anybody uses that, honestly, but my kids are off it. They're kind of like, they deaded it, so I think it's dead now. I have daughters that are 17 to 10. So knowing how to apply those things, like, I don't know what to do with that. So if someone can take what we're doing and what they are comfortable with and say, hey, the reason I want to come work here, I have an idea of how to reach a new audience, that's really strong. So knowing what a couple companies in the industry and then what you're seeing already out there really will get you interviews. And I can tell you, a lot of my friends are looking for people now, and they're not interested as much in the veterans from the industry who have learned it a certain way for 15 years. They're more interested in a fresh point of view.
Don, this has been a lot of fun. We've covered a lot today, and we really appreciate your time. Something I want to leave the students with, or anyone else listening, if you have any questions and we haven't answered it today, you can subscribe to Don on LinkedIn or Satisfi Labs, and he will notify you and get back to you.
I will notify you.
With the answers.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
But
hey, so with that in mind, we have a tradition. We always end with asking our guests just to share some last words of advice. It can be anything you want, but after you, we'll go ahead and take it out.
My only advice is I read a lot. and I choose 2 or 3 mentors. I have 2 mentors that know a lot more than me, and I meet with them every week and I ask them, hey, what's one thing you learned this week? So I don't just learn how I do, and if you want me to give you something, I'll notify you every week. But my piece of advice is try to learn what someone else is learning in addition to what you're learning, and you'll see you'll double the amount of information you're getting. It's something I've done, and I encourage you to do it.
And that's a wrap. Join us for more podcasts in 2021 and a surprise episode here before the end of the year. Have a happy holidays from our team here at the Sport, Media, and Tech Podcast.